Morning, Herb.
Yes, sir.
And good morning, everyone else. Okay.
Morning.
Morning, good morning.
Just gonna putting it on for the YouTube people and the Facebook people. Okay. Bim bum bim bum. Ta-da-dee, da-dee, da, bim, bum. What? Okay. Okay, and here we are back on Brachot 61b. Yeah. Okay. V'yahavta Hashem Elokecha. We learned in our Mishnah that the explanation of the verse, you shall love Hashem im Shema, with all your heart, with both the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, and with all your soul, even if they take your soul, and with all your might, even if they take your money. You have to be willing to sacrifice your life and your money for your belief in Hashem. So Tanya, we learned in a brighter, Rebbe Eliezer says, if it says with all your soul, in other words, if you have to give your very life up for Judaism, why does it say with all your might, which we translate as mamoncha, your money, because money is what gives you power and influence. In other words, if you're willing to give your life, for sure you're willing to give up your money. Lama, and if it says with all your might, why does it say with all your soul? In other words, if with all your might is harder to do than with all your soul, just mention with all your might, all the more so with all your soul.
I think it here means your wife, not your might.
No, that's not what it says. Because ma'od means power. Ella but the answer is because people come in different varieties. Some people, they value their money more than their lives. In other words, there are people who will risk their lives for money, and whose money is there, they'll risk their lives and their health for money. You know, they'll do all kinds of crazy things to make money. You know, they'll go down in unsafe submersibles because people are paying them $100,000 a crack, right? 250. So people do crazy things for money. And there are people who will risk their lives to protect their money, like the various gold miners in California during the gold rush. So, if you have a person, good morning, Elisa, that his body is more valuable to him than his life, it says with all your life. Most people, they value their lives more than their money. And therefore we say that if Judaism costs you your whole life, if someone says worship idols, or as we talked about yesterday, even worship, adopt Christianity or die, the mitzvah is to die. So we should love Hashem so much we're willing to die for him. If you have a man whose money is more valuable to him than his body, than his life, in other words, people who value their money so much they're willing to risk their life for it. Therefore it says, with all your might. In other words, Rabbi Akiva says, now to understand this idea of one's body being precious to one, Rabbi Akiva says, with all your life, even if they take your life. And indeed, Rabbi Akiva was tortured to death for continuing to teach Torah even after it was forbidden. Okay, and now we are going to learn the story of Rabbi Akiva's martyrdom, the great Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva always said, when will I be able to fulfill the mitzvah of giving my life for Hashem? And at the age of 120 or 110, he did so. He was 110 or 120.
When he died?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Any proof of this?
It's brought down in the Gemara, his age. Yeah. The Gemara, the Midrash, but his age is brought down. Here, I'll show.
Oh my God.
Yeah, by the way, the Radbaz, who was a rabbi in Egypt and Yerushalayim in the 17th century, he lived 110 years, and that's documented. He came to Yerushalayim at the age of 90 and taught for 20 years. By the way, people who lived a very long time did so even hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
People who made it through all the epidemics and everything. Some people, in other words, there are always a few people lived over the age of 100 in every generation, going back to the times of the
It's
Talmud.
the easiest way to explain how you eliminate 90% of a species, and then the species continues and multiplies because 10% of it had the right DNA.
Yeah,
survive.
except like what happened to the Native Americans in the Northeast, that smallpox and measles came to them before the Pilgrims got here in
Really?
69. Yeah, and it wiped out. That's how the Pilgrims were able to conquer the Northeast, New England. 90% of them were dead by the time the Pilgrims came.
Really?
Yeah, because there were fishermen from the 1400s. Fishermen would dry their cod on the beaches of Maine and Nova Scotia, well before America was officially discovered. And they used to trade with the Indians. And at some point in the 16th century, in the 1500s, there was a big epidemic of smallpox and measles, and they carried it. And the Indians had no resistance whatsoever to these diseases, and it killed 90% of them.
How come they're always blaming the Americans?
Well, they brought the disease, didn't
Yeah,
they?
but it's interesting, it's not 100%, it was only 90.
Every organism. That's why we have drug-resistant bacteria.
So that's why we still had Indians, because these 10% multiplied.
Yeah, but here, I'm looking up
then-
Rabbi Akiva. Give me a moment. I'm looking up Rabbi Akiva to find the source of his age.
Where are you looking?
I am looking on the Hebrew Wikipedia, which has sources. This particular entry is very good.
Wikipedia.
There's a Hebrew Wikipedia,
Oh.
Wikipedia.
Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Wikipedia. Look at all these Shalom Aleichem books there. Wow.
They excite you, huh?
Okay, so he passed away somewhere between 132, was murdered somewhere between 132 and 136, right?
Realize.
Right, and he was alive during the time of the temple.
Temple was destroyed over.
No, right, no, but he was already 40 years old when the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. Because he's at least 40, because he began learning when he was 40, and that was after the destruction, right after the destruction of the temples. He was born about the year 20 and died about the year 132. Yeah. So that makes him 110 or 120 when he died. Because we know that the temple had recently been destroyed when he began studying.
I told
Why? Because his father was very simple. His father-in-law, Ben Kalba Savua, we're talking about Rabbi Akiva's age here. So his father-in-law, Ben Kalba Savua, was a major figure who had provided food and wood to keep Jerusalem away from siege for 20 years, to survive a siege, and then the Zealots went and burnt it. And that's why there's a famine, and that's why Jerusalem fell. Okay? So Kalba Savua was his father-in-law, unwillingly. Because, right, he met Rachel, he was a shepherd. So Kalba Savua was his father-in-law, and Kalba Savua, so that means that Rachel, who was younger than Rabbi Akiva, so Rabbi Akiva, so in other words, Rachel would have been born before the destruction of the temple. So if Rachel was born, let's say about the year 50, Rabbi Akiva was 20 years older, that makes him born 20 or 30. And if he was born 20 or 30 and he was killed between 132 and 136, he was somewhere between 105 and 120 when he died.
So how many years is between 70 and 136?
68 was the year the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed. 70 when Matzada fell.
68?
So that's 66 years, right? 136 makes more sense because he died after the Brachot rebellion. It's 66 years. And if he was born 20 years, if he was already 40 around the time the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, so he was at least 100.
That's when he met his wife.
right after the destruction of the temple, yeah. So that would have been,
And the father-in-law didn't agree to the shidduch.
no, right, yes, they eloped, okay. But we'll learn more about Rabbi Akiva later. Let us,
Stuck with him. She said.
she was
"Sorry,
very happy with him. Okay,
Sorry, Daddy. He
Yeah.
actually was a well-to-do man.
extremely wealthy, yes. Okay, but now we're gonna learn not Rabbi Akiva's, now the Gemara does discuss, and the Medrash does discuss Rabbi Akiva's early life. And his wife's sacrificed him to learn Torah. Remember, he began learning Aleph, he married her with the promise he would study Torah. He began learning out when his son went into Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, when his son went into Cheder at the age of 3, whatever was Cheder in those days, he began studying Aleph Beis with his son. So at the age of 43, he still didn't know Aleph Beis well. And within 12 years, he was a great scholar, and within 24 years, he was the greatest scholar of all.
Let me tell you. I think he discovered, probably the first one discovered the power of AI. Because he learned so fast. And
But he was
let me tell
he
you,
was a
he had a very high IQ. Let me tell you something. I think, I think that,
Yo, someone wants to say something. Wait, just 1 second. I'm gonna fish Yossel, and then we'll, yeah, go ahead, Joe.
so.
Bob, it's noisy. It's
Close
noisy,
the door.
Bob.
Bob, close the door.
Shaking. Not shaking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead. So Joe says
AI is could be such a powerful
tool.
tool. And I see it from a Jewish standpoint, very negative. I saw a demonstration. My youngest grandson, when I was there, entered, we discussed it, he entered Parsha Dvarim. AI, whatever,
Yeah.
available.
ChatGPT,
You
yeah.
should see the output. You would think that some Talmud Chochem wrote.
But all his AI is doing it is collecting everything on the internet and filtering it according to its learning set.
Okay.
It's just a advanced form of search engine.
You won't tell somebody there's a Chochem and somebody is.
No, because that's just information. To understand the information on a deeper level, to present it to him. I'm saying, I'm saying information is information. Anyways, but Rabbi Akiva early life is discussed elsewhere. Now we're going to learn about the end of his life.
Okay.
Tono Rabbanon. We learned in the Brachot, Pam Echos, it once happened after the suppression of the Brachot revolt, Gozra Malchus Arashah, the evil empire, which is the Roman Empire, Shlo Ya'asku Yisrael b'Torah, that the Jews may not study Torah. So Papas ben Yehuda was someone who was a Jew who was close to the Romans and sought to improve things for the Jews. So he came and he found Rabbi Akiva, Shimakil Kilos Barabim. He was gathering large groups of people together in public, the Osek B'Torah, and teaching them Torah. Armalo, he told him, Akiva, Iatam Isyare Mipnei Amalkus, you're not afraid of the evil empire. Armalo, he told him, Em Shulucha Moshel, I'll give you a parable. Lama Hadavar Daimo. What is the story like? A famous story.
Fox.
L'shu show you that a fox was walking along the river, and he saw fish schooling from place to place. They're gathering and fleeing from one place to another. The fox said to the fish, "If they mountain barking, what are you running away from?" They told him that they were because people are trying to catch us with nets, and we don't want to be caught. We don't want to become gefilte fish. He told them. Ritzon said the fox to the fish. why don't you come onto the dry land? V'nodar and Ivatim will live together. Just like my ancestors lived with your ancestors. In other words, come on dry land and we'll live together nicely. Of course, the fox probably wanted to eat the fish. But he says, because they're not going to chase you on the dry land, and the nets are in the water, right?
But they knew what is up to Amrullah.
What? 1 second. Just a second.
The fox is the bigger.
Well, but they tell them he's not so clean. Okay. I'm just looking for
Let's see
something.
how the fish outfox.
Yeah, right. Okay. So he goes on to say, Amrlo, they told him, I just want to know what this business with the ancestors is. It's a very curious statement. I want to know what it means. We'll live as you did with with your ancestors. What does it mean?
What do you mean? What does it mean? It's a mindset. You don't
Yeah.
ask questions.
Yeah, I know,
about
but
mindset.
maybe there's something interesting here.
Not that Torah. Amrullah, Pikea.
The foxes will find that at one time the fish lived on land. That's what he's implying,
No, it's the other way around.
talking about his.
We
ancestors.
came out of the water, life came out of the
Yeah,
water.
but that's not what the foxes tell him, something. Well, maybe.
Right.
Well, this is a mindset.
Yeah, so the business with the ancestors is the commentaries explain that what that means is that since this is a parable for the Jews abandoning the Torah, the water being compared to the Torah, that before the Jewish people received the Torah, right, they worshipped idols like everyone else. So in other words, why are you being different? Why are you staying immersed in the Torah? Leave the Torah, become like all the goyim, and everything will be fine. That's the parable. That's the explanation of the parable. So
It's right in the, so let's read.
right, okay. So no, but that's just the point that
Amrullah.
Amrullah. So the fish told him, "Atahusha Omer Malecha Pikeach Shebachayot." Are you the one who had said about you that you are the wisest of all animals, the kligger? Lo pikeach ato tzipashata. You are not smart, you are a fool. If the place that gives us life, namely the water, because the fish breathe through from the waters through their gills, we are afraid in a place where we die. In other words, the moment we leave the water, we die. All the more so. In other words, if we leave the Torah, maybe the Romans will catch us and kill some of us. If we stay with the Torah, but if we abandon the Torah, then because as we all know, Jews who abandon the Torah assimilate and disappear, like happened in China, where there was a very big Jewish community in the Middle Ages, and they intermarried and disappeared. And alas, like happens to many American Jewish families.
Yeah.
Do you know that it was once a great Jewish community on the eve of World War II in 1939, marched in, the intermarriage rate was at 80%.
You know what the problem that we have now?
Yeah.
Half of American Jewry is disappearing, but we still count them as Jews.
Okay, that's it under the mask.
That's an under a mindset, but very important mindset.
It's a problem, as they say in Japanese. Okay. In the place where we live, the water we breathe, we're scared where we die, all the more so. So Rabbi Akiva said, now that we're studying Torah that's written about it is your life and the length of your days. We are oppressed and murdered. If we leave our natural habitat, if we leave the Torah, all the more so we're done for, we're finished for. And because the moment that we are abandoning the Torah, we cease to exist. And and spiritual death is as bad as physical death.
What is this Akum?
What?
What does that stand for? Akum.
Akum is over Kachavim Mazalos. He worships idols the signs of the zodiac. It's a stand-in for Goyim.
Yeah.
The censors put it in the Gemara, so they shouldn't feel bad that we were talking about them, about the Christians. Amru la Amru, it was said, Lahayim Matin, it was only a few days later, Ad Shetafsul, Rabbi Akiva, they arrested Rabbi Akiva, Chavashu, Beveis Asurim, and they incarcerated him in prison. But Tavsul, Papas ben Yehuda, and they seized Papas ben Yehuda, Shuetzlo, and they put him in the same cell. Amalo Papas, Akiva said, Papas, what brought you here? You weren't teaching Torah. Amalo Ashrecha Rabbi Akiva, praised you, Rabbi Akiva, Shenitfast al Divrei Torah. You were arrested on matters of Torah. Oile le Papas, what was the Papas? Shenitfast was arrested al Devarim B'Telim for empty things. He was arrested for tax evasion or something like that.
So בשעה שהוציאו את רבי עקיבא להריגה.
1 minute.
So much for Aramaic.
Right.
Sounds very Hebrew.
No,
to
because this
me.
is a brisa. That's why. This is a brita, so it's in
Yeah.
Hebrew. So b'shah shotzias Rabbi Akiva lahariga. When they brought Rabbi Akiva to be executed, it was the time for Shema. It was the morning. V'hayasarkin is
Wait a minute. Prof. Shane is Kriyat
Kriyat Shema, yes.
Oh,
V'hayasarkin is Basaro, and they tore his flesh with iron combs to torture him to death. They mekabel malchus shemayim, and he was accepting the yoke of heaven. Omer lo tamid of his students said, Rabbeinu atitrad kan. So even now, as you suffer, you recite the Shema. Omer lehem, he told them, Kol yomaya isim etztaro pasuk zeh b'chol nafshecha. My whole life, I have pained myself on the pasuk, even if they take your life, even if they take your life. Marty, my whole life, I said, Masi over there, when I'll be able to fulfill the mitzvah of giving my life for my love of Hashem. So my whole life, where it was theoretical, I yearned for it. Now that I have the opportunity to actually accept Hashem's rulership over me, accept my loyalty to Hashem at the expense of my life. Now I get to do this great mitzvah. Why shouldn't I do it? Of course, I'm going to say Shema. He continued to say the word echad. He said the word echad long. His soul left him with the word echad.
so he supposedly is the first one that used Shema.
Not
Was dying.
Not necessarily. There's a medrash that says that Yaakov Avinu did. That it was the response actually of the children to Yaakov. Shema Yisrael, listen, Jacob. Yisrael is in Hashem Elokeinu, because he asked his sons if they all believe in Hashem. But at any rate, this is the first case of it being the prayer at martyrdom, which.
Okay, so there is another story.
Just one moment. Yotza Baskov Amra, a heavenly voice came out and said, Ashrecha Rabbi Akiva, praised are you, Rabbi Akiva, Sheyotza Nishmascha Be'echa, that your soul left with your belief in the one Hashem. And so that you actually gave your life fully and consciously for Hashem, for your commitment to Hashem.
Okay, so there's another problem that always bothered me.
No.
So Rabbi Akiva supposedly had 24,000 students,
Yeah.
and they did get along with each other. And
They died.
Most of them died. How does that reflect? Rabbi Akiva reflect on that? Doesn't say much about Rabbi Akiva. Those who are his Talmidim and they didn't get along.
Well, the answer
Isn't there a problem?
Not really.
No?
Not really, because the problem of not getting along was their problem, wasn't his problem.
His problem was his Talmidim.
Yeah, but it's not because of what he taught them, just the opposite. It's the opposite of what he taught them. He said the greatest principle of the Torah is to love your fellow as yourself.
Yeah.
What it indicates is the problem of disunity among the Jewish people is a very deep problem that even Rabbi Akiva's students suffered from, but it's not his fault.
I suffered
He did
2
his
hours
best.
every day over this same problem. I
How?
look at the news I'm listening
So,
to in Israel.
That's
That's exactly what's happening.
Okay.
Exactly.
Anyways, so let me just and so So we have to learn to get along.
But
No,
wait a minute. So far, I didn't hear you explain those were his Talmidim.
they were his
He
Talmidim,
taught them,
but
and they
nevertheless,
didn't get along. Why?
because they were subject to the same disease of machloket that infected the whole Jewish people. Then that's why the first revolt failed, and that's why Bar Kokhba revolt failed. They didn't come to be as students in a vacuum, and unfortunately, there was a spirit of machloket that even Rabbi Akiva could not negate. Okay, everyone. I hope you all
Is
have
there-
a wonderful day.
Are there other
we'll see
Thank
you.
you, Rabbi.
in the subject?